The buzzards circled low that morning, black wings slicing the heat-heavy sky like sickles. Elias Crane tugged his mare to a stop atop the ridge, the sunlight sharp on the silver in his beard, his eyes squinting into the basin below. The cottonwood tree stood crooked near the dry creek bed, its bark pale and peeling like burned skin. From one of its branches, something swung a child light as a bundle of feathers, the wind rocking her gently. His breath hitched. Not a corpse. Not yet. He kicked the mare hard and descended, boots sliding on sand and bone-dry shale. As he drew close, the smell struck first not death but sweat and blood. The girl's arms were bound tight behind her rope, biting into her wrists. Her feet barely touched the ground. A carved sign hung from her neck on a strip of hide, "White man don't forgive." Her eyes were open, black, unblinking, not pleading, just watching him. Elias drew his knife. The blade trembled as he cut her down, catching her light body before it crumpled. Her breath came in short, wheezing gasps. Rope burns marred her throat. Her skin was the color of dusted earth, her hair matted and filled with burrs. Apache. He looked again at the sign, then at the hills behind him. No tracks, no hoofprints, but he could feel the eyes. Someone had meant this to be found. Someone meant for her to die slow. He didn't say a word, just slung her over his saddle like a sack of oats and turned the horse toward the broken trail home. A man doesn't speak at a hanging tree. Not if he's hung something there before. Elias Crane's cabin lay sunken between two cliffs like a broken tooth lodged in a giant's jaw. It had once been part of a cavalry outpost back before the war, just 2 rooms, 1 stove, and a battered barn full of dry rot and rusting tools. He hadn't seen another soul in nearly 4 months, not since the last drifter came begging for water and left with a cracked rib. He laid the girl down on a pile of old horse blankets beside the hearth. She didn't cry, didn't speak, just stared past him like he wasn't there. Elias poured a bit of whiskey over the cuts on her wrists, wrapped them in a strip of torn curtain. She flinched but didn't make a sound. He didn't try to talk. He didn't know what he'd say if he did. Out in the barn, he poured oats into the trough and brushed down the mare with heavy, thoughtless strokes. The girl's eyes stayed with him even out here, black stones in a shallow stream. He remembered another pair like that long ago, staring up from the embers of a burning village. He wiped his hands on his trousers, cursed under his breath, and spat into the dirt. Inside, he set a plate of beans near her feet. She didn't touch it. Later that night, Elias sat on the porch with his boots off the stars, burning overhead like cold lanterns. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a locket, silver. Inside the image of a boy, 10, maybe 11, faded with time, the name J. Crane scratched on the back in clumsy letters. Josiah, he murmured to no one. The coyotes howled far off. The girl still hadn't moved. He tried to sleep, but the dreams came. They always did. He saw the desert lit red by gunfire, heard the screams, the thunder of hooves, the way young Josiah had cried out when Elias rode away with the scouts. "They're just Apaches," they'd told him. "Kill fast, ask slow." But Josiah hadn't seen savages. He'd seen children, mothers, old men trying to flee. And when he refused to follow orders, they'd left him behind. Elias had come back too late. The bodies were already cold. The house burned to the stone. Josiah's satchel lay empty by the door, a bullet hole through the side. The war ended. The metals rusted. And Elias rode until he ran out of land. Now, a decade later, the sins still breathed. At dawn, he found the girl standing in the corner like a shadow. Her lips were chapped. She pointed at the stove, then her mouth, wordless, but hungry. He heated the beans again, handed them over. She ate without looking at him, chewing slow, precise. "You got a name?" he asked finally. No answer, just silence. He left it at that. Some names carried too much weight. He'd buried his long ago. After breakfast, he saddled the mare and tied a shovel to the back. He rode out to the cottonwood and dug a shallow grave where the sign had hung. Burned the sign, buried the rope. As the sun climbed, he glanced behind him. The girl had followed on foot, silent as a shadow eyes locked on the grave. He said nothing. But for the first time in years, he didn't feel completely alone. By the 4th day, she was gathering kindling. Not much, just broken twigs and dry grass clutched in those thin arms, but enough to tell Elias she meant to stay alive. She still hadn't spoken a word, not even a whisper, but she watched everything. Her eyes missed nothing: the way he folded his coat before hanging it, how he twisted the stove knob with a busted finger, the tin of tobacco he opened each night, though he never smoked anymore. Elias didn't ask her to do chores, but she started anyway, feeding the chickens, rinsing out the empty plates, sweeping dirt from corners like it mattered. One morning she left a crow feather on the windowsill. Another day she smoothed the blankets he'd left crumpled in a heap. He noticed all of it but said nothing. On the sixth night the wind howled through the canyon like something wounded. Elias bolted the door and set a fresh log on the fire. She sat cross-legged by the hearth, combing her hair with her fingers, trying to tame the snarled mess. "I got a brush somewhere," he muttered, more to the room than to her. She didn't respond. He found the brush in an old crate buried under his bunk, wrapped in a blue handkerchief. It had belonged to Josiah's mother, soft bristled with a chipped bone handle. He hesitated, then walked it over and held it out. She looked up at him. For the first time her gaze wasn't flat or distant, just tired and cautious. Slowly she reached out and took the brush. Later, when he passed through the room with an armload of firewood, she was asleep beside the fire, the brush tucked under her hand. In the morning she stood beside the stove and tapped her chest. "Taya," she said, voice barely more than wind. Elias stared at her. "Taya," she nodded once. That was all. He cleared his throat. "Elias," he said after a pause. "Crane." They didn't shake hands, just stood in the warm hush of the morning like two ghosts finally seeing each other. The days got colder. Autumn edged into the canyon like a thief pulling the warmth from the soil. Taya started wearing one of Josiah's old shirts, 2 big sleeves rolled 3 times over. She moved quieter than any child Elias had known, but she was always near. One morning while splitting wood, Elias caught sight of her drawing lines in the dust with a stick. Arrows, circles, symbols, Apache script. He crouched beside her and pointed. "What's that?" She hesitated, then tapped one symbol twice. "Home." He nodded slowly. "You remember where it is?" She pointed southwest toward the red hills. Elias looked that way into the sun-scorched distance. His stomach knotted. Those lands hadn't seen peace in 20 years. Blood soaked every stone out there. If her family was still alive, they were hiding deep. That night Elias brought out a map. She traced the rivers with her finger, stopped near a cluster of hills marked Red Bone Pass. She pressed her finger down. "Home," she said again. Elias studied the spot. A 3-day ride, maybe 4 with a child. Dangerous, but possible. He folded the map and looked at her. "We'll see," he said. She stared at him, unreadable. Then she nodded once and walked away. He didn't know if she trusted him. He wasn't sure he trusted himself. But something inside him, something long dead, stirred. The smoke was faint but wrong. Elias spotted it mid-morning, rising in thin gray strands from the north ridge where no ranch should have been. He pulled his spyglass from the saddlebag, wiped the lens clean on his sleeve, and scanned the ridge. Through the glass shimmered what was left of the Harlan homestead, blackened boards. Barn collapsed and the house half caved in. Elias swore under his breath. The Harlans had 3 kids. He kicked the mare into motion and headed back to the cabin. That night, while Taya slept in the corner, Elias cleaned the Henry rifle for the first time in months. The oil smelled sharp and bitter, mixing with dust and old guilt. He opened a rusted tin of bullets, counting slow. 27 rounds, some of them corroded. The next day, trouble rode in proper. 5 riders, all red coats dyed with clay and buffalo blood. They came in hard boots, raised guns on their thighs like venom. At their head rode Judd McCauley, lean and sharp as a gutting knife, with silver hair and a cruel scar that split his left eyebrow like a crack in marble. Elias watched them from the porch, one hand beneath his coat where the pistol waited. Elias Crane Judd drawled, his voice like tobacco smoke curling around a noose. "Well, ain't you a sight? We thought you was bones by now." Elias didn't smile. "I keep to myself, sure do. Heard you've been keeping other folks too." "You seen any redskins pass through lately?" Elias tilted his head. "Not a one." Judd's eyes glittered. Strange. We found tracks not far from here, small feet. Could be a squaw, could be a kid. Elias didn't blink. Could be a coyote. One of the riders chuckled. Another spat. Judd's smile vanished. We're hunting, Elias. Red Wake Brotherhood's got orders from the sheriff. Apache stragglers are to be cleared out. Anyone harboring them will be tried, same as them. Sheriff still has a mouth, or does he let butchers do the talking now? Judd dismounted, slow boots crunching the dirt. Careful how you talk. We're past old debts, you and me. But traitors don't get two chances. Elias didn't move. That girl you strung up in the basin was that you. Judd didn't flinch. She got lucky. Next ones won't. The silence grew heavy. Even the birds fell quiet. Then Taya stepped into the doorway. Just a shadow, but enough. Judd's eyes flicked past Elias to the girl. He grinned. Well, damn. Elias drew first. Shot cracked like thunder. The bullet grazed Judd's arm, spun him back. The rest dove for cover. Gunfire erupted. Wood splintered. The porch rail shattered beside Elias. He yanked Taya inside, bolted the door, and pushed the stove against it. Get to the crawl space, he growled. Taya hesitated, then ran. Elias slid the rifle onto the windowsill and fired again. One rider dropped screaming, clutching his leg. Another fell from his horse. Smoke thickened in the room. Bullets punched through the walls. The mirror exploded. A lantern crashed and flames licked across the floor before Elias stomped it out with a blanket. A bullet tore into his shoulder. White pain screamed down his arm. He fell back, teeth clenched, blood soaking his sleeve. Taya, he rasped. She crawled out from the floorboards, hands trembling, dragging his saddlebags. Elias grabbed them, shoved in the map and the locket, and fumbled for his old scout badge. You ride west, he choked. Red Bone Pass. You ride and don't stop. Taya shook her head, eyes wide. They'll kill you, girl. And I ain't gonna be the man who watches that twice. He lifted her onto the horse through the back door while the front blazed. Shouts rose outside. Judd's voice carried "Burn it down." "Smoke 'em out, go," Elias whispered, slapping the mare's flank. She didn't cry. Just looked at him once, hard and hollow, then rode. Gunfire followed her into the canyon. Elias turned, blood dripping from his fingers, and faced the door. He still had 9 bullets left. The flames licked the porch, curling around the cedar posts like the fingers of something alive. Smoke thickened in the rafters, stinging Elias's eyes. He backed away from the door, the Henry rifle gripped tight in his left hand. His right hung useless, bleeding into his waistband. Outside, Judd's voice barked orders through the roar. Flush him out. Keep your heads down, he still bites. Elias crouched low and moved to the window where the shutters had blown loose. Through the smoke he saw movement, 2 of the Red Wake boys circling the barn, one limping, the other crouched behind a rain barrel. He steadied the rifle on the sill and fired. The limping one went down hard, a hole through his neck. The other dropped and scrambled behind cover. The rifle clicked empty. Elias cursed, fumbled with the next bullet, fingers slick. He missed the clean days back when a loaded, and pain didn't cloud the sights. From the side window came a sudden crash, glass and smoke. Someone had thrown a torch inside. It rolled across the floor, flames spreading fast. Elias grabbed a bucket, doused it, and coughed hard. His legs were jelly, head pounding. He stumbled toward the table and yanked open the drawer, more bullets, a knife, a second pistol with a single shot. He loaded what he could and staggered to the door. Through the flickering light and gun smoke, he saw Judd again, backlit like a devil, shouting at the last 2 riders to flank the back. Elias kicked the door open and fired. One man dropped mid-stride. The other screamed and fell, clutching his side. Judd whirled, eyes wide, then raised his revolver. The 2 men fired at once. Elias's shot struck Judd's thigh. Judd's bullet found Elias's chest. The old scout flew back, hitting the floor hard. The wind knocked clean out of him. Judd limped forward, panting, dragging his leg. "You stubborn bastard," he spat, still full of piss. Elias tried to lift his pistol. Too heavy. His fingers were numb. Judd knelt beside him, revolver leveled. "Should have died back at Rincon Valley. I gave you that chance." Elias smiled, blood in his teeth. "You gave me nothing." Judd pressed the barrel against Elias's temple. You really think one little Apache girl's worth this? Elias looked him dead in the eye. More than you. Gunshots split the air, but not Judd's. Judd's body jerked. Blood bloomed across his chest. His mouth opened, surprised. He collapsed beside Elias, twitching once. Behind him stood Taya. The Henry rifle smoked in her hands. She didn't tremble, didn't flinch. She stepped over Judd's corpse and knelt beside Elias. His eyes fluttered, clouded with blood and pain. "You came back," he whispered. She nodded, then placed something in his hand. The locket. He stared at it, thumb tracing the edges. "You ride," he rasped. "Red Bone Pass. Find your people." She shook her head. "You come too." He tried to speak, coughed. "I'm done riding," he said. She looked at his wound, the blood soaking through. He touched her cheek with his good hand, smearing ash. "Go, girl." Her eyes filled not with tears, but something deeper. A storm held back. Outside, the fire spread. The horses had fled. The canyon echoed with the hiss of flame and the moan of wind. Taya slipped his knife into her belt, packed what food remained, and dragged Elias's body out of the house before the roof collapsed. She found his old saddlebag, stuffed it with bullets, jerky, the map, the locket, and the scout badge. Then, as the cabin burned behind her, she pulled Elias onto his mare, half dead, and slumped and rode into the canyon. 2 days they traveled. Elias faded in and out, whispering names she didn't know. Josiah, Rebecca, words in broken Apache. He sang once low and rough an army hymn about dust and mercy. They crossed dry gulches, sleeping beneath stars. Taya cared for him like a brother, like a father, like something sacred. On the 3rd night beneath a crescent moon, Elias stirred for the last time. He looked up at her, a strange peace in his face. "You remember the way she nodded?" He smiled. "Good girl." Then the breath left him. No cry escaped her lips. She dug a grave beneath a saguaro and buried him with his badge in one hand, the locket in the other. She pressed a stone over the grave, carved one word with his knife. "Forgiven." Taya rode with silence braided into her hair. The mare carried her through canyons where the wind whispered in Apache, where rocks held the blood of ancestors and ashes of enemies. She followed Elias's map by memory, tracing dry riverbeds and ancient trails. No fire, no sleep longer than a whisper. She rode like a shadow through land that had forgotten mercy. By the 5th morning, the cliffs changed. Towering red spires greeted her like silent sentinels. She dismounted and walked the horse the final mile. When the hawk circled overhead, low and deliberate, she stopped and waited. Minutes passed. Then from behind a sandstone ridge, figures emerged. 3 men, paint on their faces, bows strung, eyes wary. She raised both hands and said nothing. One stepped forward, old, braids down his chest. Scars crossed his face like broken rivers. He studied her a long time. Then he said name. She hesitated. Then in a voice like dry grass, "Taya, daughter of Gray Crow." The old man's face didn't move, but something flickered in his eyes. "You are not welcome. I bring blood," she said, and pulled the badge from her pouch, held it out. "Scout of the cavalry, died protecting me." He looked at it, then at her. "That one cost us 20 souls," he said. "Women, children, your father's brother." "I know," she whispered. "You ran from your punishment." Taya looked him in the eye. "I was hanged by your order." The other warrior shifted. The old man's jaw clenched. "Not to death." "Close enough," she said, then pulled her collar down, showing the scar still red on her throat. The silence cracked like dry earth. "You returned," he said finally. "I brought the debt," she answered. The old man looked at the badge again, then turned to the others. "Let her pass." They parted. She walked into the camp. Sparse, silent. Children peeked from behind hides. Old women sat near the fire, eyes rimmed with years of pain. She sat with them, ate in silence, slept beneath stars. But peace did not come. The elders summoned her on the 3rd day, sat her before the council fire. "You wear the mark of the enemy," one said. "Do you know what it means?" "I do," she answered. "He killed your people. He saved me," she said. Why, Taya looked into the flames. "I don't know. maybe to balance something, maybe. He couldn't bear to do nothing again. A woman with snow-white hair leaned forward. "He was your father's enemy. Did you love him?" Taya swallowed. "Then he died so I could live. I do not know what else to call that." No one spoke for a long while. Then the old man Gray Crow himself stood. His voice cracked with memory. "I ordered her hanging," he said, "because she showed mercy to a dying soldier at Fort Banner. She was my daughter, but she knelt to cradle an enemy. That made her guilty." He looked at her now, not with hate, not with love, just the weight of years. "You returned and you brought death behind you. That was the price, and you paid it." He raised a hand. "Let her be free of her shame." The fire snapped. Taya stood. The badge still hung at her side. She reached into her pouch and pulled out the locket, opened it, showed it to her father. This was his son, she said. They killed the boy during the war. That's why he buried his name. Gray Crow took the locket, studied it. "You see now," she said, "hate turns men into ghosts. He carried his long enough. I will not." He gave the locket back. "You walk your own path now," he said. "The tribe will not follow." She nodded. That night she burned the badge, laid its ashes beneath the roots of a cedar tree. But the locket she kept. When the spring rains came, they found Taya gone. The scouts saw her trail small hoofprints, light and careful, heading east across the salt plains where the land flattens into forever. She had left behind the dress the tribe had given her, folded neatly beneath her father's spear. Her bedroll was gone, and so was Elias's map. She rode the same mare, lean now but still strong, across dried riverbeds and wind-beaten mesas, past abandoned forts where vultures roosted on cannon wheels. Through the ghost towns where only dust remained, she rode with her hair unbound, the silver locket tied to her neck with horsehair cord. No one knew what she sought. Some said she followed Elias's old patrol routes, the ones he rode during the war, as if retracing his path to unbury what had been lost. Others swore they saw her near the cliffs of Widow's Hollow, lighting candles beside nameless graves. A drifter once claimed she stopped him on the trail, handed him a letter without address, and asked him to burn it without reading. She spoke little. She spoke, slept under the stars, hunted her food, helped widows carry water, fought off 2 bounty men who tried to take her for a reward that no longer existed. In one town, she traded a polished stone for a child's broken harmonica, sat by the fire that night trying to coax music from it, failing, then laughing for the first time anyone could remember. The Red Wake Brotherhood was never rebuilt. Judd's corpse was eaten by coyotes before anyone came looking. Years later, a marshal passing through San Andreas found a crude marker outside the church door. A small carving in cedar burned into it the image of a horse's shadow, and beneath that a single Apache word, nada, forgiveness. He asked the preacher what it meant. The preacher shrugged, said it showed up one morning, no tracks, no note, just that word and a chill in the air that lingered till sunset. But some of the old women on the edge of town, those who remembered the raids, the burnings, the screams, they said a girl came once, quiet, eyes like obsidian, left a pouch of silver coins on the altar, then vanished like breath in wind. They say she still rides, sometimes in dreams, sometimes on the edge of storms. A flicker of motion in the corner of a man's eye when guilt rises from the past like smoke. And in her saddlebag always the locket, always the weight of the dead. But she carries it differently now, like something offered, not something owed. The last thing Elias Crane ever gave was a second chance, not for himself, but for someone else to live without the poison he once drank like water. He died with no monument, no songs. But sometimes justice sounds like hooves on stone, like breath in the desert, like the soft jingle of a locket riding east into dawn. Redemption does not shout. It walks with bare feet, leaves no trail but the ones others choose to follow. Somewhere beyond the horizon, a girl once marked for death rides on neither hunted nor hiding. The wind does not ask where she came from, only where she's going, and in the firelight of her camps there are no sermons, just stories. Echoes of a man who gave everything so a forgotten child could become more than a symbol of vengeance, more than anything else free. If this story gripped your heart, consider subscribing for more tales of dust redemption and the choices that echo across time.